Practicing instrument approaches by loading them up and flying them is just one half of the battle. When you're VFR practicing an IFR approach, how do you practice the communication piece that's so important to instrument flying? If you're a safety pilot, or better yet, a CFII instrument instructor, here's a little guide to planning out an approach and simulating the ATC piece. We're departing Ross Draver in Pennsylvania, planning to fly the ILS into runway 10 at Allegheny County Airport near Pittsburgh. Let's overlay the plate on top of the VFR chart like ForeFlight would do, and we'll see an important fact about this approach. The approach course, symbolized by the localizer feather, flies right through a bit of Bravo airspace that starts at 2,500 and goes up to 8,000. The approach course has us at 3,000 feet until intercepting the glide slope at Shands, so if we're going to fly this approach correctly, we'll need a Bravo clearance. Here's how that might work. You as the safety pilot will need to contact Pittsburgh approach. Now, when asking for a practice approach, you need to give a bunch of information on your intentions and needs. The whole point of the IFR system is to get you efficiently from point A to point B. If we were really on an IFR flight plan here, ATC would just ask if we had the field in sight, and if we did, simply clear us for a visual approach and leave it there. We got our own plans though, we're on a training mission, so we need to make this clear to ATC. We might decide to call them up and just say we have a request before firing our entire plan to them in one call, but here's all that info that they'll need. Pittsburgh approach, Skyhawk 518 Foxtrot Tango, 15 miles southeast of Allegheny at 4,000. We'd like to practice the ILS 10 approach into Allegheny County with a Bravo clearance at or below 3,000 along the approach course. We'll do our own navigation and make a full stop landing. And again, you'll probably want to break up that transmission a bit. They'll come back and assign us a squawk and coordinate a clearance. After we squawk, they'll come back and say, November 8 Foxtrot Tango, radar contact 15 southeast to Allegheny, 4,000 feet, cleared into class Bravo, at or below 3,000, practice approach approved, report established on the localizer. And we'll read that back. Now, ATC isn't going to give us any directions on flying this approach since we said we'd do it on our own. You as a safety pilot will need to role play as the controller. You intend to fly vectors to final approach here. So how would a controller do this, and what should you say playing in that role? Typically, a controller will assign an aircraft a downwind leg and a base leg just like in a traffic pattern, although much further away from the runway. Coming from the southeast like this, we'll join a right pattern from the south. The downwind heading is the reciprocal of the runway heading. So runway 10 will have a downwind heading of 280 degrees, maybe 10 degrees more or less if there's crosswind. In any case, vectors will always be assigned in 10-degree increments. We'll also want to be at 3,000 feet when we intercept the localizer. So when we're about 8 or 10 miles away, you as the safety pilot can tell the pilot flying, November 8 Foxtrot Tango, descend and maintain 3,000, turn left heading 280, vectors for the ILS runway 10. Remember, we're not talking to ATC here, you're just saying this to the pilot flying in a roll. Now, more than just a few pilots in this position have made the mistake of actually hitting the push to talk button and transmitting their answer to ATC, even though we're just role playing here. Descend to 3,000, heading 280 for the ILS 10, 8 Foxtrot Tango. And so we get ourselves downwind for runway 10. When does the next turn, the base turn, commence? In many cases, the air traffic controller must give you a vector which allows you to intercept the approach course no closer than 3 miles from the final approach fix. In this case, that's the glide slope intercept at Shands. So we need to draw a mental image or use ForeFlight to see where 3 miles from Shands will be, and plan our base turn somewhere after that point. This will be a perpendicular heading to the approach course. November 8 Foxtrot Tango, turn right heading 010. Right heading 010, 8 Foxtrot Tango. Next, we're going to assign our pilot a vector to intercept. ATC typically uses a 30-degree intercept, but we need to time it correctly. If we give the intercept now, we'll be too close when we hit the localizer and I'll just miss the glide slope intercept. It's usually good to assign the vector just as we're getting into the localizer feather. If you've seen some of our other videos or trained on the Flight Insight IFR Ground School, you might have heard of the PTAC acronym for organizing the elements of the approach clearance. PTAC stands for position, turn, altitude, and clearance, and that's what the pretend controller, you, are going to issue to your pilot now. November 8 Foxtrot Tango, you're 4 miles from Shands, turn right heading 070, maintain 3,000 until established on localizer, cleared ILS runway 10. The P in position is the 4 miles from Shands. The T in turn is to turn to 070. This gives us a 30-degree intercept for the 099-degree approach course. A is altitude, we'll maintain 3,000. Finally, C is clearance, cleared ILS runway 10 approach. The pilot reads back, right heading 070, 3000 until established, cleared ILS 10, 8 Foxtrot Tango. After a short leg on the intercept heading, we pick up the localizer and fly that inbound. The real controller told us to advise when we do so, so we tell them over the radio, approach 8 Foxtrot Tango is established on the ILS. November 8 Foxtrot Tango, radar services terminated, squawk VFR, contact tower. We talk to tower, who assigns us a landing clearance, and things proceed from there. So that's an example of how to role-play ATC with your pilot or your instrument student. It adds a much needed degree of realism to do so, and if you know how controllers work behind the scenes, you'll be able to set up your own vectors like we just did here for any approach you choose. Try a few yourself as a chair flying exercise, and head over to the website today to check out all our courses, including our newest flight instructor ground school, and we'll see you there.